Hello and welcome to today's GR Live. We are talking reviews to revenue, and I am with some amazing top staffing leaders who have really leveraged real-time feedback in each of their organizations. Many times we talk about reviews, and it's about the external piece that people see out there. And today we're really going to be focusing on the impact of the internal feedback loops and how it's helping to strengthen culture, strengthen teams, motivate and empower recruiters. And it's really not my story. This story is really here with the panelists who are here and graciously going to share what they're doing within their organizations to really turn real-time feedback into fuel to grow their culture, to grow their teams, and to ultimately grow their business. And we know without a doubt, I started my career as a recruiter some 27 years ago, and recruiting is one of the toughest professions out there. Everyday recruiters are facing rejection and pressures and constant performance evaluations. Yet the industry really doesn't talk about something that I think is incredibly important, which is getting feedback, not organizationally, but down to that desk level. And amazing things happen as we're going to unpack and learn here today of what happens when you enable real-time feedback down to your recruiters from the people that they serve every day, their candidates. And it really helps to strengthen the culture, motivate recruiters. It's about recognizing work. It's about going beyond just the placements and building relationships and experiences that are going to last a lifetime for your brand. So today I am joined with three amazing staffing professionals. I have Haley Phillips, who's the Director of Recruiting from IDR, joined with Nikki Palmer, Director of Technology Enablement with Applin, and Laura Fishman, Director of Operations with Find Great People. So welcome everybody out there viewing, and welcome to our panelists. How are we doing today?
Doing great.
I love it. I love it. Well, Haley, why don't we start with you? Why don't you just give us a quick intro, who you are, what you're all about, and why you decided to show up here today with us?
Yeah. Thank you, Adam, for the introduction. My name is Haley Phillips, excited to be on this webinar today. As Adam said, I'm the Director of Recruiting with IDR. We are primarily an IT staffing firm. In my role here at IDR, I've been here for a little over 9 years. I started as a recruiter, actually an intern, and been in the recruiting space all of my career here at IDR, and acting now as, again, Director of Recruiting. And I spend a lot of my day-to-day working hand-in-hand with the recruiters to deliver for our jobs, for our clients.
Well, thank you for joining, Haley. And Nikki, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Nikki Palmer. I have been with Applin in Canada for 18 years. I started out as a 360 recruiter. I had the privilege of leading a team out of our branch, and now I get to wrap my arms around everything technology. I love this business. I think it's fascinating. You mentioned brand, and not only do we represent the brand that our companies are called, but we each have our own personal brand when it comes to how we deal with people. So this is a pretty fascinating topic, I think.
Outstanding. And Laura, last but not least.
Yeah, I'm Laura Fishman. I'm the Director of Operations at Find Great People. I have a unique story in that I am not a recruiter, and I have never been a recruiter. My background is actually in higher education. I worked there for many years before transitioning into the recruiting space. So I came in through marketing as a marketing coordinator and kind of worked my way up. And now oversee a lot of our technologies for our recruiting, as well as some other functions within our business. So I have a little bit of a different perspective on this from internal and external marketing, as well as employee experience, employee engagement in our culture. So excited to be here. Find Great People is a staffing search and consulting company based in South Carolina.
Outstanding. And let me tell you, all three of these organizations have thousands, and I'm talking thousands of reviews. And these aren't just reviews on their organization. These are reviews from the candidates that they're working with every day on their amazing recruitment teams. And really that's what powers this is real-time feedback from the on the recruiters. And today we're really going to unpack kind of 4 key areas. Why does real-time feedback matter more than ever today? How do you take those reviews to internal recognition? How do you take those reviews to strengthen the culture through the visibility that you're given, through the feedback that you receive? And ultimately, how are you turning that feedback into growth for the organization? And I'd like to start off with Haley as Director of Recruiting. She is right there smack dab in the middle of every day. But why do you think for IDR, why is this consistent feedback loop that you've implemented and the recognition so important for your recruiters' performance?
Yeah, I think there's various reasons. I'll start with just the industry. It's a very fast-paced industry, and candidate expectations over time are just higher and higher for recruiters. And I think being able to receive that daily feedback and understand how they're coming through for their candidates and be able to take that feedback and make adjustments real time is super important. We don't have really time to wait, to receive feedback on an annual basis to take that feedback and make changes. We need to receive that feedback real time on the candidates' expectations and make changes in the moment. So I think that's one key piece. And then another reason, we went through stages with Great Recruiters. When we initially rolled it out, I think we were able to identify opportunities for improvement with our processes. There were things that we didn't even know needed to exist within our day-to-day process. One big piece of that was just candidate check-ins and the expectation that candidates had on their end of when they wanted to hear from the recruiter. What we may have thought internally that expectation looked like didn't align all the time with what the candidates expected. So we were able to take that and really make changes to what candidates want to see from recruiters. Then we were also able to kind of phase 2 of this is to turn this feedback into daily recognition. I think that's super important in a role as a recruiter. Mm-hmm. It's a grind. It's hard. It's tough. There's a lot of delayed gratification in recruiting, right? Your biggest measurement of performance is making placements, but we know that doesn't happen every single day, right? You're working towards that every activity, every dial, every conversation, every submittal, every interview, you're working towards that placement. But again, it is a delayed gratification to get to that end result. So being able to hear back from your candidates, how you're performing, how you're making an impact to them and helping them find a job has been a huge key piece of motivation daily. I was actually just talking to a recruiter earlier this morning, letting them know I was hopping on for a Great Recruiters webinar and talking just about the value. And they told me, they were like, Great Recruiters is probably the best tool we could have implemented, honestly, because it's my motivation in the morning. I come in every morning, I check my inbox, and I see the reviews. Majority of the time, we're receiving positive feedback from our candidates. That wasn't the case initially, again, because we were getting raw, real feedback from the candidates in the initial period before we made some changes to our process. But now, I would say 9 times out of 10, we're receiving very positive feedback from our candidates. But they just said coming in every day and seeing those positive reviews just gets them motivated for the day. And I think it really helps recruiters just stay motivated day in and day out, knowing that they're making an impact on every conversation they're having with a candidate.
Yeah. So. No, it's good. I mean, you opened up the black box, right? A lot of people ask about the process, but the process is driven by the people, and this is about getting beneath that process of the people that are actually driving it. And I love to hear, we hear it all the time, it motivates. Somebody said it's an adrenaline shot. I wake up, I get excited for reading those reviews. And Laura, when we were talking, You mentioned something that recruiting is more than just a job. And I think there's organizations that go through recruiters like tissue paper, and it's high transaction, it's high burnout, it's how many submittals, interviews, hires, calls, it's all that stuff. But how do these candidate reviews in your mind help remind your team that this is more than just a job that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. At FGP, we try really hard to stay grounded in our why, which is to impact lives, right? So every day, I think when you're in the day-to-day grind, right, of the calls, of the emails, of the submission process, and working hard to get candidates over the finish line and to fulfill our clients' needs, it's just a grind. And you forget sometimes that the work that we're doing is to impact lives, right? Is to change a life of the candidate you're placing, but also make the lives easier for the people who are going to be working with your clients. So having our team be grounded and rooted in that and be reminded daily, weekly, monthly of why they're doing matters and how it matters, that is a huge driver of culture, of a sense of belonging, feeling like you're a part of something bigger than yourselves and it's more than just a job. And I think sometimes if you're not getting that feedback, if you're not getting the validation of, okay, what I just did made a huge difference for the candidate, their families, their spouse, their children, right? You're impacting so many people through one placement. And having that validation through that process is really great. It's going to keep our people, right? It's a retention tool for our team, and to keep them motivated, to keep them going out every day, even when it's tough, even if you have a fall off, right? If a candidate doesn't go through, it keeps you motivated and keeps you going. And we absolutely seen that with our team.
Yeah, and feedback is scary. Like, to a lot of people, we talk to people, they're like, well, what if I get a bad review? Like, what happens if they say something negative? And I think there's this fear. And I'm just curious, like, Nikki, what have you guys experienced from when you first implemented this and rolled it out and said, hey, everybody, we're not getting reviews on Applin anymore. We're getting reviews on you. Like, can you talk about that transition from going from like day one to like where you guys are at as an organization?
Absolutely. I mean, we're in a business of dealing with people day in and day out, whether you're talking to a recruiter or whether you're talking to a candidate, whether you're talking to a client. And sometimes people tell you what you think they want to hear and vice versa. And you don't always get the true story. And really the only way that anyone can get better at what they do is if they can really appreciate how that interaction was perceived. And sometimes that feedback mechanism is one of the few ways that people feel brave enough to say what it is that they really want to say. So sometimes that means the feedback isn't always positive. But honesty, like being able to use honest insights to change or adapt or even influence how you then interact with the next person is just going to make you that much better at what you do. And, we at Applin, we do all kinds of staffing. So we do temporary, contract, permanent. So each interaction is very different because of the types of people and the types of professionals that we get the chance to talk to each and every day. And sometimes a feedback step like this is one of the unique ways that we can improve.
Yeah. And Laura, how do you manage the negative, right? Because there's a lot of positive stuff. And I think if you don't ask, human nature, more people are only going to share the negative, and they're going to find places to share that negative. We're 10 times more likely to share negative experiences, right? But by implementing this, you're bringing that right to your doorstep. You're inviting that feedback right to your doorstep. So nobody's perfect. Nothing's perfect. So when that negative feedback comes across your desk, organizationally, how do you manage that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I remember when we first started implementing this process, and I remember when the first negative one came through, and it was closer to the beginning, people were, oh my gosh, what have we done? What can of worms have we opened, right? I think it all goes back to having conversations, right? Having live conversations. So our managers are tagged to these reviews so that they can recognize the really great things that our team is doing real time as it comes in. Hey, I just saw this come in. This is awesome. Congratulations on this really hard to fill role, right? So we're giving that, but we also see some of the negative feedback. And then it just comes down to having a personal conversation with someone. And when that happens, because we've already received so much great feedback, we can say, hey, this is a drop in the bucket, right? Compared to the rest of the experience. It also opens up an opportunity for us to engage with that candidate one-on-one. So either that recruiter or that manager can then call that candidate and say, hey, I would love to talk more about your experience with working with our team. Let me know where there was a disconnect in communication, or let me know where this feedback came from. And it kind of creates this human experience where you're getting deeper into that candidate. And sometimes it's they didn't get the job and they were upset about not getting the job, right? We've all experienced that from a review perspective in our industry. It's really hard when you do get that feedback, because sometimes it's out of your control, right? They just weren't the best candidate, but what can we do to improve their experience? And we have found, whether it's through Great Recruiters, whether it's through Google, whether it's through a phone call, an email, however we're getting feedback, if we pick up the phone and we call someone and engage in a conversation, we can really understand their experience and work towards mitigating that for others. And all in all, it ends up being really helpful. And that candidate feels heard, seen, valued, and they're more likely to come back and engage with us for a future. So it's been really helpful for us to just be a part of that process, to be able to help our team understand the why and make them feel like they still are doing a great job, but also really see the candidate's perspective in that process.
Yeah, and I think you hit an important point. If you're asking somebody for feedback and they share it, whether it's positive or negative, you should take action on it, right? This is why, like, I wouldn't depend on understanding our business based on an end of year survey. It's too late. Like, that person's already told how many other people about that. But you hit on something really important. When you follow up, when you let them know we asked, you told us, and we care. And just raise a hand. Do you experience, like, candidates feel much better about you? They feel much better about your brand. They feel much better about the situation. They want to be heard. And sometimes it is, I didn't get a job. Maybe it's you missed a phone call. We're human. Mistakes happen. But if you didn't have that feedback loop, it's not coming back to you. And so actually you're turning a negative into a positive is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had people go back and change their reviews.
Oh, yeah.
They gave us a 1-star and then they had a conversation. Oh, hey, I just had a conversation. So grateful for them. They changed it to a 5-star Google review just because they understood and we had a conversation and we bridged that gap. It's a difference.
So, Nikki, talk to us a little about it, Applin. And I think this is for all three of the organizations. When we were talking, and this all came about as I was just re-engaging and learning where the value is. What was funny is none of you talked about the external referral piece. None of you talked about the online reputation. You all dug back in and started talking about how this is impacting your team and culture. And you shared about how this feedback isn't just at the recruiter and recruiter management level. It's going to the top. And can you talk about what Applin is doing to kind of embrace that feedback and provide that recognition from the top of the CEO down to the feet on the street?
You bet. And Laura alluded to this, that there is an option within the platform where reviews not only go to the individual receiving the feedback or that the feedback is about, but you can loop in the hierarchy of the other individuals that are connected to them. So each time a review is submitted, it goes to the contributor, whether that's a recruiter or an account manager, and it goes to the individuals that they report to. So it really allows our team to celebrate great feedback in the moment. And then it also allows those teams, if it's a constructive comment, to dive in a little bit and figure out exactly what went wrong, triage, things like that. So in addition to in the moment celebrations, we actually built our own reward system or award system, I should say, that get handed out every year. So we have a Recruiter of the Year award, we have an Account Manager of the Year award, we have a team award, and those are based on scores and reviews and the number of stars that come from the Great Recruiter feedback surveys that we collect.
Yeah. And Haley, from from the organization, I know you're involved. Obviously, you're reading all these reviews and everything. But what is IDR doing organizationally to kind of leverage this feedback, not just on the recruiting team, but across the entire organization? And how is this impacting leadership in your organization?
Yeah, so we have a couple different things happening. We have a monthly insider newsletter that we send out to the entire company, and we recognize the top recruiters based off of their Net Promoter Score and how many reviews the recruiter with the most review within that insider newsletter that we send out. We also, every time we share a review that we're praising, we're giving recognition to, we don't just share it and say, hey, good job to that individual recruiter. We loop in the COO, we loop in the VP of recruiting, we loop in their direct man. I mean, we make it a big deal to make sure that they receive the praise and recognition. We talked a lot about culture, and I truly believe that what makes culture these days, or a strong culture, is recognition. It is praise. It is just showing appreciation in their value. And the more that we've just embraced this tool, the more that we've just naturally been able to offer that to our employees, our recruiters. So yeah, that's some things that we've done internally.
And do you feel that's opened up like just better internal conversations, that transparency piece? Everybody knows where everybody's at, what we're doing. Like, have you seen that increase the connection between leadership and the recruitment teams, the sales teams?
For sure. Yeah, and I think also
for sure.
I think also one thing is, like, prior to Great Recruiters, I think back to my days of recruiting where, again, you're just in the day-to-day grind, and those that were making the most placements got the most praise, right? Just if you were making the most submissions, the most interviews, the most placements, you got the most praise. And we didn't praise enough the behind the scenes, the candidate conversations, the impact that you're making day in and day out on all of these calls. And I think that's a huge piece of it, right? Because if there's a period of time where you are, again, just in a rut, you haven't made a placement in a minute, you feel defeated, the recognition, the value, it means so much to these individuals. And I think that it's really made an impact to our culture, just making these recruiters and all employees feel valued in what they're doing day in and day out. And it's not just recognizing those that are making the most placements within the organization.
Well, it's bringing purpose beyond pay in one way. People want purpose. High performers, they want pay, but they also want to feel appreciated. And like you said, if you're only rewarding the quantitative stuff, the submittals, the interviews, the hires, it's like in those tough times, as a baseball coach, I always think, like, I'm coaching in the great swings. It's not just the hit. And I think recruiting is very similar. You can have a lot of at-bats, and right now we're probably getting a lot of at-bats, not as many hits, but there's a lot of great swings that are happening. And I think that's the kind of feedback that is missed for organizations that don't have a way to collect that in real time. Is they're just left celebrating the placements, but there's so much value and there's so many relationships being built and there's so many great conversations that are being had that just go missed. And I just want to switch gears a little bit for Laura. Laura, you had mentioned, right, you're on the marketing side as well. So how are you using the feedback across, your intranet, the newsletters, social media to kind of amplify the recruiters and to boost them up and lift them up? What are the things that you guys are doing over at Find Great People?
Yeah, so we use this for both external and internal. So we post on social media. We recognize whenever we don't post every review because we get so many, which is great. So we can't post all of them, but we have a regular cadence where we are externally sharing our reviews. and showcasing our amazing recruiters. We also, whenever we get awards like the top rated awards, that's been really great for our brand. So we do a lot of PR around that as well, and external pushes. Internally, similar to Haley, we have what's called the FGP Insider. So we always feature a testimonial for recruiters. So we use that as a great way to highlight one specific recruiter. And another, to your point, another great way to showcase people who maybe aren't top billers and aren't getting a lot of other recognition. It's a great place to plug them. And we do it based on a rotation. So we want to make sure that everyone gets hit. And so we keep track of that, and we showcase a different person every month through that. We also, we have a company intranet that we designed, and we have 4 different testimonials that we rotate on there. That's our homepage. So every time someone logs on, they can see the different feedback that we've received on great recruiters. So, so those are a couple of different ways that we've done that throughout, just kind of visually as an organization, to help plug. I also think this has been, and we talked a little bit about, Google reviews and the external piece, but I will say, I know that's not what this is about, but when you have a recruiter who consistently sees their name on Google, and that's because it is being pulled through great recruiters, that's huge. That's so motivational to them to not just see our brand and a great review about Find Great People or a negative one about a recruiter, but when they're seeing their name show up on Google, when you have hundreds of reviews that are all positive and your name is attributed to that, that's branding for you as a recruiter, right? But it also just really helps with motivation and validation of the work that you're doing as well.
Yeah, that's good. And Haley, you had mentioned something interesting. You said you don't have to mandate like driving better service, right?
Right.
You don't have to tell people to provide better service. It's improving naturally. And that's a cultural thing, right? You've implemented real-time feedback as part of the culture, but what is the impact? Like the top performers at the top, it's doing it, but like when you look at the folks that you talked about that might be struggling a little bit, you might not be getting the placements as fast as somebody else. Like how does this impact them and their performance and their growth within the organization?
Yeah. And I think that when we implemented Great Recruiters, it's not like we had bad quality or bad service prior to. I think it naturally increased our quality tremendously just by like the recruiters knowing that every single conversation they're having matters and they will receive feedback on it, or at least the candidate has the ability to provide feedback after that conversation. Right. So it just naturally ensures that all of our recruiters are on and providing the best service, not only for their own brand, but for the company's brand and sake as well. So I think that, like we talked about in the beginning, we initially implemented this and started to quickly understand what matters most to candidates and make tweaks to our process. So one of the biggest ones was just our follow-up cadence with candidates. Once they're submitted to our client, they want feedback, right? But they want to also know, they want to make sure that they've been submitted to the role, when exactly they were submitted. Has there been any follow through, any touch points with the hiring team? What's the status? They just want to know what that process looks like. So we've added to our process to just get way more in depth with that, with candidates on the front end, what to expect in this particular process with this client. And then we were also able to add a cadence to our process of making sure every candidate receives a phone call touch point every 48 to 72 hours based off of the client and how fast we expect this role to move. So I think it just, again, naturally increased our quality of service that we're offering candidates based off of the feedback we were receiving.
Yeah. And Nikki, you've just celebrated 18 years. Is that right?
Yes.
18 years at Applin. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So there was a long period of time that your world existed at Applin without great recruiters. Can you talk about from a cultural standpoint, just how this has kind of shifted the culture of the organization and in what ways?
Absolutely. So, I mean, culture has always been a cornerstone at Applin. Dave Applin used to call it our secret sauce. So our people were responsible for culture. And I think just through our hiring practices, we hired individuals that were truly excited about hearing about other people doing really well. Because of course, this is such an interesting industry where there can be competition internally, but we've always tried to make certain that even if it wasn't a great recruiter feedback, we'd always ask for testimonials way back when. They were a lot harder to get. But if there was a really good one, it was shared and it was circulated. And similar to Laura and Haley, in addition to our yearly awards, we try to do, we have a Monday call every month. And so there always is a person who is showcased there. We weren't really able to do that before, right? So unless someone intentionally wrote in, and those were then showcased across the organization. This is just a much nicer and tighter way for us to be able to use the feedback in more ways than one. I also think too, when we go to the effort of collecting that testimonial, then we'd have to say like, can we share this? Do we have your permission to send this to somebody else? And that's all really built into the process right now. So it's made so easy. Like we have testimonials featured on our website. We have it built right in. So they come right from Great Recruiter and they're on our website and they circulate. And we have a little Great Recruiter badge in our signatures. So, our team can then send out an email. And if someone gets curious, they can click on that and they can go to our Great Recruiter page. And so it's just made it really nice and easy to have it integrated in so many ways. Whereas before it wasn't always easy to get them.
Right. Okay. Oh, good. So the big piece is, and what I love that each of you are saying, like, it's not just the recruiter getting the feedback. It's the organization embracing it. It's the way that the culture has shifted. I love what you said, Haley. Like, we don't have to tell them what our standard is. Our standard's out there. People can read it. You can read a recruiter's review. You bring somebody new into the organization and say, what kind of experience do you want to create? It's like, read these reviews for these recruiters that are highly rated, that are getting this great feedback. It gives a roadmap and a blueprint. And I'm just curious if anybody can jump in. When you bring in somebody new, that's a new recruiter, they haven't been in the industry, how does Great Recruiters impact that individual from day one? Yeah, Nikki.
You can go first. So when someone new starts with their organization, they get onboarded by a handful of different team members that are, represent cross sections of the different things that we do. And one of them is they get an introduction to our technology. So they're specifically brought to an intranet page, and we have a graphic of what our marketplace looks like, what our tech stack looks like. And one of the things that's broken out in there is Great Recruiter. And we also have tech tips that get put into like a weekly Teams channel. And just so happened, Great Recruiter was our tip of the week this week on making certain that profiles were populated and things like that, because that's one of the best ways to then have the Find a Recruiter button properly work on your site and things like that. So they get introduced to our technology in a more broad way. But one of the pieces that touches every contributor in our organization is Great Recruiter, because whether you're trying to get feedback from a candidate or feedback from a client, it can work on both sides, whereas some tools are sourcing specific or placement specific or. So it's nice that it's something that can be used universally.
And from a development perspective, do you see that person getting up to speed faster because they are getting that feedback? Is anyone recognizing that in their organization?
Yeah, I can jump in on this one. So we actually, every new hire that we bring in to the organization is entry level, never been in staffing before, and we use Great Recruiters University. We use that as a different tool, more as like an internal training tool initially, and once they have hit a certain threshold, then they graduate from that recruiter university essentially, and they are now on the normal cadence that we have for our reviews. But the explanation initially is we have this amazing tool that is used for various reasons, but right now we're going to focus on receiving feedback from your candidates as an internal training tool, right? Every feedback or every piece of feedback we receive is only to help you grow as a recruiter and to make you an even better recruiter based off of your feedback. And then once you have, again, graduated from that recruiter university, they're now on that normal cadence, and it's only gearing them up to help them with their recruiting brand to continue to excel in that recruiting role.
And do you see some people are afraid to put their recruiters in that are new, right? They don't have any experience. They're afraid that it's just going to be flooded with negativity. They're not going to have enough value to drive a positive stuff. What has been the impact of implementing this for the entry level people coming in? Like, have you seen, is it helping them get up to speed faster? Is it helping them grow within the organization quicker? Like, what is the direct impact it's having on those individuals?
Yeah, for sure. I think that it is helping them gear up quicker, but I think just providing that transparency to candidates that, like, hey, look, this is a training process. Everyone that's new to an organization has to go through that process. But I think it helps the candidates with their expectations from what they expect of this brand new recruiter. But it also helps them, I think, not take that feedback too personally where it negatively impacts them.
Right.
And they know that this is just part of our training process. Is we're going to take each piece of feedback. We're going to analyze each situation as it is. If it's a negative situation, which typically it's not, but if so, we will analyze it together. We'll discuss it and we'll make adjustments real time versus not having the opportunity to do so at all. So,
right. Well, and one of the big things, I go back to the job board, just switching gears. It's very easy. A candidate applied to a job. We talk to that candidate. We place that candidate. There's a direct value in ROI. This is an area where I'm curious. Like, Laura, how are you kind of seeing the value? Because a lot of this, people could say, well, this is light and fluffy. This is just internal feedback. It's making people feel good. It's a nice to have, but I hear different stories from you three that this is not just the nice to have, feel good. It's actually leading to growth and results. And can you talk about what you've seen as far as the end result of real-time feedback on your recruiting team and what the impact has been for the organization from a results perspective?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we, from two different sides, you have the results perspective, right? But then you also have the candidate reintroduction. So, right, so you have this relationship with the candidate, you go through this process, and then say they're an employee on billing, right? And you want to reintroduce them to a new job. You want to use them again. You already have a warm pipeline of candidates who have given you really positive feedback, right? We have ours integrated with Bullhorn, and then we also have some fields that are tied to Bullhorn, so we can see the correlated Great Recruiter score, their feedback, so we can identify on the front end when we're looking for a pipeline of candidates, even if we didn't place them, right? We do ours on the submission note as well. So when a candidate is submitted, that doesn't mean they're placed, but hopefully they had a great experience working with our team. So we can see that on the front end, so that when we are in our recruiting process, we already have some warm candidates who interacted with us, who have given us positive reviews, and we can reach out knowing that they're going to pick up the phone and respond to us, even if they're not available. So it kind of helps us with a short list of qualified candidates who we have submitted, we know or have interacted with. So that time to fill for a job that comes open is automatically going to be shortened because you already have a pipeline of people who you've worked with in the past. So I would say that's been a really positive piece, to have that Bullhorn insights automatically that's being pulled from Great Recruiters. So that's been a huge value add for us.
It's like you put in all this time, energy, and effort to build these relationships, and let's face it, it's like batting. You're going to talk to 10 candidates, maybe you place one, but it means that you can still create a great experience for 100% of them. And I love what you said. You're leaning back in and nurturing those relationships. You have an easy, quick way of finding the candidates who already love you, who already love the recruiter, already had a great experience. And the toughest thing for recruiters is getting callbacks, right? It's getting somebody to want to call you back and trust you. And that's a whole other side we can get into, how Great Recruiters is increasing callbacks by 50% through the profiles and all of that. But really good to hear. And Nikki, from your perspective, I know early on we had a recruiter that I think posted her profile and it turned into like a flood of job orders and opportunities for a mining organization. And that's very easy to measure. But how do you measure the ROI and the value of what real-time feedback Great Recruiters is doing for Applin?
Yeah, first, I just want to call out Laura. I love that you guys are using the scores from your surveys to then source for other candidates. It's not something that we've ever thought about before, because we're integrated with Bullhorn as well. And so it's very easy that data is collected. So I love that. That's a takeaway for me, actually. So to speak to the question, yes, it has definitely made a huge difference for some of our team members if they're in, especially in those specialized niches. The individual that you're referring to, I mean, the fact that candidates can even make referrals through the tool, that's another way to measure ROI is, is it leading to another profile and another professional and another individual that we can then place, things like that. And it would be really nice actually to have reporting on the number of referrals that end up along in our pipeline. I think that could be a really powerful way to continue to measure the ROI. But, especially for us, like we'll take testimonials, we'll take scores, we'll take everything. It goes into our RFP. So if we win an RFP, we're not saying we're good just because we say we're good. We're able to say, like, look at this feedback that we've received from these parties and take their word for it because they've had the chance to work with us. So from an ROI perspective, we do use it externally as well. Even the testimonials on our website, our team can point to that because in this interesting business where there's so many providers out there and so many people saying they're good at what they do, it's not just our words in this case. Like, we obviously have conviction in what we say and we believe that we're adding value. But to have it written by someone that's had an interaction with us, I think that goes so much farther to then winning even more business and just creating this like amazing organic perpetual momentum.
Good. And Haley, just follow up with you. How do you measure the value, the ROI of the investment in something like Great Recruiters and real-time feedback? What are the things that you're looking at that matter when you say this is making a direct impact? It's a smart investment for our organization.
Yeah, I think both Laura and Nikki hit the nail on the head there with their answers. But I was going to mention referrals before Nikki did. So that's one thing that we never had a process there or implemented into our day-to-day of making sure each recruiter asked every candidate for referrals. And it was quite awesome to see once we implemented this tool how regularly candidates offer that information and give us referrals. So all of those candidates are obviously getting back into our system, and now we're just adding even more candidates to be able to source over. But obviously when they refer those candidates, we'll establish a new relationship with the candidate. We'll have an intro call with them. We will give information about IDR. We'll get them set up with our jobs list, make that connection. Now they're in our database for us to continue to source over. So just going off of what Nikki said there, and then just the branding of it all. I mean, we didn't have the ability to give that reputation to not only our company, but to our individual recruiters before. It was just simply based off of their LinkedIn. And when I was recruiting, I was on the phone with the candidate saying, please, leave me, a note on my LinkedIn profile. I would love for you to add something if you want to.
Right.
That was not very common for candidates to do so. And so there just wasn't that much opportunity for to form a brand of yourself as a recruiter. And I think that we've given these recruiters the ability to do so. And now, I mean, in the industry, there's so many staffing firms, there's so many candidates getting calls from recruiters day in and day out. But to use that to get callbacks, to get rights of a candidate, them wanting to work with our organization versus 5 others that they're getting a call from about the same opportunity, that is creating the ROI for us.
That's awesome. And clients engage with staffing firms because they're relying on somebody that can access talent they otherwise can't access themselves.
Right.
Talent doesn't work with staffing firms as much as people might want to believe. Talent works with people, and they work with recruiters they can trust. And so, it's your recruiter's ability to dig into those networks. And when you can start driving those referrals, building those relationships, going back to what Laura said, compounding, reach out to the people that already had a great experience with you. They're going to take your call back. And the job that you have might not be right for them, but you're connecting that relationship and that trust to say, is there anybody else that you know? And it just continues to compound. I mean, the value of a staffing firm is their recruiter's ability to access talent that your client can't. And that talent is accessed either through job boards where you're fighting with everybody else under the same job board, or it's going layers deep as you're starting to build into those relationships and build into the referral network and everything. That's where you can start finding the talent that your competition doesn't have. And, from a review standpoint, reviews are great. Everybody wants great Google reviews, right? Everybody wants a great Glassdoor, but what it's not doing are the things that you talked about today, which is directly impacting your culture. I heard retention of your staff, bringing recruiters up to speed faster, having them wake up in a tough market and feel motivated, empowered, and validated, appreciated. I mean, these are all things that real-time feedback does, as long as you embrace it organizationally, like the 3 of you have within your organizations. If you're looking to just get reviews for the external, I think you're missing the really important stuff. And I think that's why I wanted to bring this together today, because so much is talked about the external visibility of reviews, and very little is talked about the impact that real-time feedback, we do reviews, but real-time feedback, the impact that it has on the culture. We're jumping up in time, and I would just like a final thought from each of you, talking to staffing leaders. But Nikki, starting with you, what's the biggest surprise that came to you from getting real-time feedback? What was the biggest eye-opening thing that you weren't expecting that happened for the organization?
I think the biggest thing for me is people are much more inclined in general, right? If you're not asking for feedback through a formal mechanism like this, the feedback you're going to get is predominantly constructive or negative, right? Most people wouldn't take the time to write in a positive review just for the sake of doing it. And so having a system that allows all kinds of feedback to be collected, it's amazing the number of things that you can then celebrate simply by having a tool like Great Recruiter, and then using it for so many other ways to build your people up, celebrate wins, and just have those amazing moments as a team.
Yeah. Laura, what's the biggest surprise that you've kind of realized through Great Recruiters?
So a little bit of a surprise, but also a little bit of a change in process that I do think is important. When we first started getting feedback, it was after the placement was made. And we were very hesitant and got a lot of pushback for changing that cadence to earlier in the process, thinking that people needed to have longer to get work with our team, needed to, all the things. We finally moved it up, and we have just seen an explosion of more feedback. It's really helped with our team, again, with driving culture, just that cycle of feedback. And I think it's been huge. So one thing I would tell people to do is to get feedback earlier in the process. You want to make sure that they have time with your team so they can give an adequate review, but you don't have to wait till the very end. And if there's an issue, you can jump on it a lot quicker. You can help with candidate fall-offs. You can help with that retention and make sure that placements cross the finish line. So I think that's been a huge learning thing for us, and something that has surprised our team, that there's still a lot of value doing it earlier in the process.
Awesome. And Haley, last but not least, what was the biggest surprise that you realized after implementing Great Recruiters?
Yeah, so when we decided to invest in Great Recruiters, our recruiters were not super excited about it. They were like, you're telling me that every candidate I submit to a client is going to provide feedback? That's scary. I don't know what to expect. But it is now one of the most valued and favorite tools that these recruiters have at their desk. And I think it's just surprising to go from thinking it was going to be this negative tool and scary thing to being their motivation, being their recognition, their brand, there was just so many aspects of it that have positively impact their desk, their day-to-day, the culture, all the things. So.
Well, awesome. Well, hey, we could go on. I think there's a lot more to unpack, but I really, truly appreciate one, not being afraid to embrace something that's new. I think that's a testament to leadership in the organization to embrace something that many staffing firms, when you implemented, weren't doing it. And I think for recruiters, it can be scary to get feedback. But I love the way that you've implemented it, the way you've incorporated into your training development, the way you've incorporated from leadership acknowledgement of using reviews as examples of how somebody drove the core values of your organization. And just want to thank you all very much for sharing today. And these are three outstanding organizations. If you're on the outside looking in and you're looking for a staffing partner, someone to work with, look no further than these three or any other great recruiter certified firm. What you know you're going to get are organizations that care about their people, they care about the experience, and they're investing in ways to make sure that they ensure the quality of their service every single day, every single interaction. They're not just looking at the people they successfully placed at the end of the year and asking them how they did. If you want to feel good, it's a great way to feel good. But if you really want to dig in, understand how your processes are being perceived, understand how individual recruiters are being perceived and understood, and giving them ways to kind of be recognized, differentiate, and go out there and prove to the world all the great stuff that they're doing. Look no further than great recruiters. But Nikki, Haley, Laura, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your stories. And I wish everybody just an awesome rest of their week.